Question 1. The monitoring system demonstrates a pattern of unusual activity during the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations entrance examination, specifically concerning the timing and content of responses from a small cohort of applicants. This pattern suggests a potential breach of examination protocols. Which of the following actions best upholds the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair admission, in accordance with its established regulatory framework? Option A. Disregard the monitoring system's findings as potentially erroneous and proceed with the admissions process as originally planned, without any further review. Option B. Conduct a brief, informal review of the flagged activities, focusing only on the most obvious discrepancies, and make a preliminary decision without consulting the full admission committee or relevant university policies. Option C. Immediately disqualify all applicants whose activity triggered the monitoring system's alerts, based on the assumption that the system's detection is conclusive proof of misconduct. Option D. Initiate a thorough, evidence-based investigation into the detected anomalies, cross-referencing the monitoring system's data with the university's admission regulations, and establish procedures for handling examination irregularities, while ensuring due process for affected applicants. The correct answer is D. Initiate a thorough, evidence-based investigation into the detected anomalies, cross-referencing the monitoring system's data with the university's admission regulations, and establish procedures for handling examination irregularities, while ensuring due process for affected applicants. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between the university's commitment to academic integrity and the need to ensure a fair and transparent admissions process. The monitoring system's demonstration of potential irregularities requires careful judgment to uphold the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations established admission regulations and ethical standards. The university must act decisively to investigate any anomalies without prejudicing legitimate applicants or compromising the integrity of the examination process. The correct approach involves a systematic and evidence-based investigation of the detected anomalies. This entails cross-referencing the monitoring system's findings with the university's official admission guidelines and procedures, which are designed to ensure fairness and prevent fraudulent activities. The university's internal regulations, as stipulated in its charter and admission policies, mandate a thorough review of any evidence suggesting a breach of examination rules. This approach aligns with the ethical obligation to maintain a level playing field for all applicants and to uphold the reputation of the university. An incorrect approach would be to immediately disqualify applicants based solely on the monitoring system's alerts without further verification. This fails to adhere to the principle of due process, which is implicitly embedded in academic regulations requiring evidence of wrongdoing before punitive measures are taken. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the system's alerts altogether, which would represent a dereliction of duty to safeguard the integrity of the admissions process, and could lead to the admission of unqualified or improperly admitted candidates, thereby undermining the university's standards. A third incorrect approach would be to conduct a superficial review that does not involve all relevant stakeholders or a comprehensive examination of the data, thus risking an incomplete or biased outcome. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes evidence, fairness, and adherence to established regulations. This involves 1. Acknowledging the alert and initiating a formal investigation protocol. 2. Gathering all relevant data and evidence from the monitoring system and other sources. 3. Consulting the university's admission regulations and ethical guidelines to determine the appropriate course of action. 4. Ensuring that any investigation is conducted impartially and with respect for the rights of the applicants. 5. Making a final decision based on the verified findings and in strict accordance with university policy. Question 2. The efficiency study reveals that the international student enrollment numbers at Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations are below target, and a proposal is made to streamline the admission process for international applicants to increase these numbers. Which of the following approaches best upholds the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair admission practices? Option A. Lower the minimum academic entry requirements specifically for international applicants to meet enrollment targets, while maintaining the existing standards for domestic applicants. Option B. Create a separate, expedited admission track for international students that bypasses the standard document verification and academic assessment procedures to speed up the enrollment process. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive review of the international admissions criteria and credential evaluation process to ensure objectivity, transparency, and consistent application, potentially involving external academic assessment bodies for foreign qualifications, and implement any necessary adjustments uniformly for all applicants. Option D. Expedite the admission of international students by prioritizing those who appear to have greater potential for future economic contributions or easier cultural assimilation, without a strict reevaluation of their academic credentials. Correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive review of the international admissions criteria and credential evaluation process to ensure objectivity, transparency, and consistent application, potentially involving external academic assessment bodies for foreign qualifications, and implement any necessary adjustments uniformly for all applicants. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge in balancing the university's operational efficiency with the integrity of its admission process, particularly concerning international applicants. The pressure to meet enrollment targets can create an environment where shortcuts or biased decision-making might be considered, jeopardizing fairness and adherence to established academic standards. The university must navigate potential conflicts between administrative goals and its commitment to equitable evaluation of candidates. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic review of admission criteria and processes, ensuring they are objective, transparent, and consistently applied to all applicants, regardless of their origin. This aligns with the principles of fairness and non-discrimination, which are fundamental to any reputable educational institution. Specifically, it requires verifying that the evaluation of international credentials is done by qualified personnel or external bodies recognized for their expertise, and that any adjustments to admission standards are based on documented academic equivalency and are applied uniformly. This upholds the academic integrity of the university and its commitment to international standards of education. Incorrect approaches analysis. Prioritizing applicants based on perceived ease of integration or perceived future economic benefit, without a rigorous academic assessment, is ethically unsound and potentially discriminatory. It bypasses the established academic evaluation framework and introduces subjective biases, undermining the principle of merit-based admissions. Focusing solely on meeting enrollment targets by lowering admission standards for international students, without a proper academic justification or equivalency assessment, compromises the academic rigor of the university. This approach risks admitting students who may not be adequately prepared for the program, potentially leading to higher dropout rates and a diminished reputation for the university. It also fails to uphold the principle of equal opportunity in education. Implementing a fast-track admission process for international students that bypasses standard verification procedures for academic documents is a direct violation of due diligence and academic integrity. This creates a significant risk of admitting unqualified candidates or those with fraudulent credentials, which can have severe reputational and legal consequences for the university. It also creates an unfair advantage over domestic applicants who undergo a more thorough process. Professional reasoning. Professionals in university admissions and administration should adopt a decision-making process that prioritizes transparency, fairness, and adherence to established academic and ethical guidelines. This involves 1. Understanding and upholding the university's mission and values, particularly concerning academic excellence and inclusivity. 2. Familiarizing oneself with all relevant internal policies and external regulatory frameworks governing admissions, especially for international students. 3. Conducting a thorough and objective evaluation of all applicants based on predefined, transparent criteria. 4. Seeking expert advice or external validation when dealing with complex issues, such as the equivalency of international academic credentials. 5. Documenting all decisions and the rationale behind them to ensure accountability and facilitate future reviews. 6. Resisting pressure to compromise academic standards or fairness for the sake of administrative expediency or target achievement. Question 3. Risk assessment procedures indicate a potential for subjective bias in the evaluation of international applicant portfolios for the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations entrance exam. Which of the following approaches best mitigates this risk while adhering strictly to the university's entrance exam regulations? Option A. Allowing individual admissions officers to make final decisions based on their overall gut feeling about an applicant's suitability for international relations studies after a cursory review of submitted documents. Option B. Relying primarily on the personal recommendations of faculty members who have prior connections with international institutions to gauge the potential of applicants. Option C. Implementing a multi-stage review process where each applicant's portfolio is assessed by at least 2 independent evaluators against a predefined rubric derived directly from the entrance exam stated criteria, with a final review by the admissions committee to ensure consistency. Option D. Prioritizing applicants from countries with which the university has existing academic exchange agreements, regardless of their overall application strength. The correct answer is C. Implementing a multi-stage review process where each applicant's portfolio is assessed by at least 2 independent evaluators against a predefined rubric derived directly from the entrance exam stated criteria, with a final review by the admissions committee to ensure consistency. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to provide a fair and transparent admissions process. The pressure to admit qualified candidates, especially in a competitive international relations program, can create an environment where shortcuts or biased interpretations of regulations might be considered. Careful judgment is required to ensure that all admissions decisions are based on objective criteria and adhere strictly to the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations entrance exam regulations. The correct approach involves a systematic review of all submitted documents against the established criteria outlined in the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations entrance exam regulations. This includes verifying the authenticity of academic records, assessing the relevance and quality of extracurricular activities as defined by the exam guidelines, and ensuring that any interviews or assessments are conducted in a standardized manner. The regulatory justification lies in upholding the principle of equal opportunity and preventing arbitrary or discriminatory admissions practices, as mandated by the university's charter and the entrance exam's procedural guidelines. Ethically, this approach ensures fairness and maintains the reputation of the university as an institution committed to meritocracy. An incorrect approach that relies solely on the subjective impression of an applicant during an interview, without cross-referencing with documented qualifications and adhering to standardized assessment protocols, fails to meet the regulatory requirement for objective evaluation. This can lead to biased decisions and a violation of the principle of fair assessment. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes admitting candidates from specific regions or with certain perceived connections over objectively qualified applicants directly contravenes the non-discriminatory clauses within the entrance exam regulations and university admissions policy. This constitutes an ethical breach by favoring personal or external interests over academic merit and fairness. A third incorrect approach that bypasses the established verification procedures for academic transcripts or recommendations, assuming their validity, exposes the university to admitting unqualified students and undermines the integrity of the admissions process, violating the regulatory requirement for due diligence. Professionals in admissions should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations entrance exam regulations. This framework should include 1. Establishing clear, objective criteria for evaluation. 2. Implementing standardized procedures for document verification and assessment. 3. Ensuring all evaluators are trained on the regulations and ethical considerations. 4. Maintaining detailed records of all decisions and the rationale behind them. And 5. Establishing an appeals process for applicants. This systematic approach ensures compliance, fairness, and accountability. Question 4. The monitoring system demonstrates that the current applicant data processing workflow for the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations entrance exam is inefficient, leading to delays in candidate shortlisting. A new, more streamlined data processing method has been identified that could significantly reduce processing time. However, implementing this new method directly would bypass several established procedural checkpoints mandated by the university's admissions regulations. What is the most appropriate course of action to address this inefficiency while ensuring compliance with the university's regulatory framework? Option A. Immediately implement the new data processing method on a trial basis to assess its effectiveness, with the intention of formalizing it later if successful. Option B. Directly alter the data processing workflow to incorporate the new method, as the efficiency gains are critical for timely admissions, and inform relevant departments after the process is underway. Option C. Focus on optimizing the existing workflow through minor adjustments, even if it does not achieve the same level of efficiency as the new method, to avoid any deviation from current procedures. Option D. Propose a formal amendment to the existing admissions processing guidelines to incorporate the new, more efficient data processing method, ensuring all changes are reviewed and approved by the relevant university committees. The correct answer is D. Propose a formal amendment to the existing admissions processing guidelines to incorporate the new, more efficient data processing method, ensuring all changes are reviewed and approved by the relevant university committees. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need for efficient information processing with the imperative to adhere strictly to the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations established admission procedures and data privacy guidelines. The university's regulatory framework, as outlined in its internal admissions policies and relevant Armenian data protection laws, dictates how applicant information must be handled and processed. Deviation from these established protocols, even with the intention of improving efficiency, can lead to breaches of confidentiality, procedural irregularities, and potential legal repercussions. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any process optimization does not compromise the integrity of the admissions process or the privacy rights of applicants. The correct approach involves a systematic review and potential amendment of the existing admission processing guidelines, followed by a formal proposal for implementation. This method upholds the principle of procedural integrity, ensuring that any changes are transparent, documented, and approved according to the university's governance structure. It respects the established regulatory framework by seeking to improve within its boundaries, rather than bypassing it. This aligns with ethical obligations to maintain fair and transparent admissions processes and legal requirements for data handling. An incorrect approach that involves directly altering the data processing workflow without formal approval bypasses established university procedures. This constitutes a regulatory failure by disregarding the university's internal governance and potentially violating data protection laws if applicant data is handled in an unapproved manner. It undermines the principle of accountability and transparency. Another incorrect approach, which is to implement the optimized process on a trial basis without informing relevant stakeholders or seeking prior approval, also represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This action demonstrates a lack of respect for established protocols and can lead to unforeseen consequences, such as data inconsistencies or security vulnerabilities. Without a clear oversight mechanism, it fails to adhere to the principle of informed consent and proper authorization for process changes. A further incorrect approach, focusing solely on the technical efficiency of the new system without considering its compatibility with existing legal and procedural frameworks, is also professionally unsound. This overlooks the critical requirement that technological solutions must operate within the bounds of regulatory compliance and ethical considerations. The decision-making process should involve a comprehensive assessment of the proposed changes against the university's admission regulations, data privacy policies, and any applicable national legislation governing higher education admissions and data management. Professionals should always prioritize adherence to established rules and seek formal approval for any modifications, ensuring that efficiency gains do not come at the cost of compliance or ethical integrity. Question 5. The monitoring system demonstrates a pattern of minor discrepancies in supporting documents for a subset of international relations program applicants. These discrepancies range from slightly inconsistent dates on previous academic transcripts to minor variations in the formatting of recommendation letters. The university's admissions committee must decide how to proceed to ensure the integrity of the admissions process while adhering to the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations entrance exam regulations. Option A. Initiate a thorough internal review of each flagged application, cross-referencing the discrepancies with official university admission criteria and seeking clarification only if the discrepancies significantly impact eligibility or indicate potential fraud. Option B. Ignore the monitoring system's flags, assuming they are minor technical errors that do not warrant further attention, and proceed with the admissions based on the initial application review. Option C. Contact each applicant directly to inform them of the system's findings and request immediate explanations for all discrepancies, regardless of their perceived severity. Option D. Immediately disqualify all applicants whose applications have been flagged by the monitoring system to maintain the strictest adherence to document accuracy. Correct answer is A. Initiate a thorough internal review of each flagged application, cross-referencing the discrepancies with official university admission criteria and seeking clarification only if the discrepancies significantly impact eligibility or indicate potential fraud. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between the university's operational efficiency and the integrity of its admissions process. The monitoring system's findings, if not handled with due diligence, could lead to either an unjust exclusion of deserving candidates or the admission of unqualified individuals, both of which undermine the university's reputation and academic standards. Careful judgment is required to balance the need for a robust admissions process with fairness and adherence to established regulations. The correct approach involves a systematic and evidence-based review of the flagged applications, focusing on identifying genuine irregularities rather than making assumptions. This approach aligns with the principles of fairness and due process, which are fundamental to any academic institution's admissions policy. Specifically, it requires cross-referencing the flagged information with official documentation and university admission criteria, as outlined in the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations entrance exam regulations. This ensures that any decision is based on objective evidence and adheres strictly to the established admission framework, preventing arbitrary disqualifications and upholding the integrity of the selection process. An incorrect approach that relies solely on the automated flagging without further investigation fails to uphold the principle of individual assessment. This could lead to the rejection of candidates who have legitimate explanations for discrepancies or whose applications, despite minor anomalies, meet the overall admission criteria. It also risks overlooking genuine cases of fraud if the monitoring system is not sophisticated enough to detect all forms of misrepresentation. Another incorrect approach, which involves immediately contacting the applicants to explain the system's findings without a prior internal review, bypasses the necessary due diligence. This could put applicants in an unnecessarily defensive position and may reveal sensitive information prematurely. It also fails to establish a clear internal process for handling such issues, potentially leading to inconsistent or biased responses. A further incorrect approach, which is to disregard the monitoring system's findings entirely, ignores a potentially valuable tool for ensuring the integrity of the admissions process. While the system may not be infallible, its purpose is to identify potential issues that warrant further scrutiny. Ignoring such signals could lead to the admission of candidates who do not meet the required standards or who have engaged in fraudulent practices, thereby compromising the university's academic reputation. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Acknowledging the potential issue flagged by the monitoring system. 2. Initiating an internal review process to verify the flagged information against official documentation and university admission regulations. 3. Developing a clear protocol for addressing confirmed irregularities, which may include requesting further clarification from applicants or initiating a formal investigation. 4. Ensuring that all decisions are made in accordance with the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations entrance exam regulations and ethical principles of fairness and transparency. Question 6. The monitoring system demonstrates a pattern of unusual activity during a specific segment of the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations entrance examination for a particular candidate. According to the university's established examination protocols, what is the most appropriate initial step to address this finding? Option A. Ignore the alert, assuming it is a technical glitch or a false positive. Option B. Immediately disqualify the candidate based on the observed unusual activity. Option C. Implement a temporary suspension of the examination for all candidates until the anomaly is resolved. Option D. Conduct a thorough review of the monitoring data and cross-reference it with other available evidence, consulting the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations examination regulations for guidance on further steps. The correct answer is B. Immediately disqualify the candidate based on the observed unusual activity. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need for efficient process management with the imperative to uphold academic integrity and adhere to the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations entrance examination regulations. The monitoring system's findings, while potentially indicating a procedural lapse, could also be misinterpreted or lead to hasty, unsubstantiated conclusions. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any action taken is fair, evidence-based, and compliant with the university's established protocols for handling examination irregularities. The correct approach involves a thorough, systematic investigation that prioritizes gathering all relevant facts before making any determination. This approach aligns with the principles of due process and fairness, which are fundamental to any academic institution's examination procedures. Specifically, it requires consulting the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations official examination regulations to understand the defined procedures for investigating potential breaches of conduct or procedural errors. The process should involve reviewing the raw monitoring data, cross-referencing it with candidate performance and any other available evidence, and then, if warranted, initiating a formal inquiry as stipulated by the university's guidelines. This ensures that any disciplinary action or procedural adjustment is based on concrete evidence and follows the prescribed legal and ethical framework of the university. An incorrect approach would be to immediately flag the candidate for disqualification based solely on the initial monitoring system alert. This fails to acknowledge the possibility of system error, misinterpretation of data, or mitigating circumstances. Such an action would violate the university's implicit or explicit commitment to a fair and impartial assessment process and could lead to an unjust outcome for the candidate. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the monitoring system's alert altogether, assuming it is a false positive without any verification. This demonstrates a lack of diligence and a failure to uphold the university's responsibility to ensure the integrity of its entrance examinations. It could allow a genuine irregularity to go unaddressed, undermining the credibility of the entire examination process. A third incorrect approach would be to implement a broad, punitive measure affecting all candidates based on a single potential anomaly. This is disproportionate and unfair, penalizing individuals who have acted with integrity. It also fails to address the specific issue identified by the monitoring system and is not a procedurally sound response according to typical university examination regulations. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Identify the potential issue. Recognize the alert from the monitoring system as a signal for further investigation. 2. Consult relevant regulations. Immediately refer to the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations entrance examination regulations and any associated procedural guidelines for handling irregularities. 3. Gather evidence. Collect all available data related to the alert, including system logs, candidate activity, and any contextual information. 4. Analyze evidence objectively. Evaluate the gathered evidence against the established regulations and university policies. 5. Follow prescribed procedures. If the evidence suggests an irregularity, initiate the formal investigation process as outlined by the university. 6. Ensure fairness and due process. Provide the candidate with an opportunity to respond to any allegations and ensure that the final decision is based on a thorough and impartial review. Question 7. System analysis indicates that Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations is experiencing an increase in applications from students with international educational backgrounds. To ensure the integrity of its admissions process and uphold academic standards, the university must implement a robust procedure for evaluating foreign academic credentials. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the university's regulatory framework and ethical obligations for international admissions? Option A. Establish a standardized protocol for verifying international academic credentials through recognized evaluation services or direct institutional contact, ensuring compliance with university admission regulations. Option B. Expedite the admission process for international applicants by prioritizing the review of application forms over the thorough verification of their academic credentials. Option C. Accept international academic transcripts and diplomas based on the applicant's self-declaration of their academic achievements and perceived equivalency to local qualifications. Option D. Delegate the responsibility of credential evaluation to individual faculty members within each department, allowing them to make subjective judgments based on their familiarity with foreign education systems. The correct answer is A. Establish a standardized protocol for verifying international academic credentials through recognized evaluation services or direct institutional contact, ensuring compliance with university admission regulations. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge in balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the practicalities of managing international student admissions. The university must adhere to its own internal regulations regarding admissions criteria and documentation, while also navigating the complexities of verifying foreign educational credentials. Failure to do so can lead to admitting unqualified students, undermining the academic reputation of the university, or unfairly rejecting deserving candidates. The core challenge lies in establishing a robust yet efficient process for credential evaluation that is both fair and compliant with Anania Shirakatsi University's established admission policies. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves establishing a clear, documented process for evaluating international credentials that aligns with Anania Shirakatsi University's admission regulations. This process should include seeking official verification from recognized international credential evaluation services or directly from the issuing institutions where feasible. This method ensures that the university is making admission decisions based on verified academic qualifications that meet the university's standards, thereby upholding academic integrity and adhering to its own admission policies. This proactive and systematic verification process is ethically sound, as it treats all applicants fairly by applying consistent standards, and legally compliant, as it respects the university's internal regulatory framework for admissions. Incorrect approaches analysis. Relying solely on the applicant's self-reported academic history without independent verification is an incorrect approach. This fails to comply with the university's implicit or explicit requirement for verifiable documentation, potentially leading to the admission of students who do not meet the academic prerequisites. This approach also poses an ethical risk by not ensuring a level playing field for all applicants. Accepting credentials based on their perceived similarity to domestic qualifications without a formal evaluation process is also incorrect. This bypasses the established regulatory framework for assessing foreign academic equivalence and introduces subjective judgment, which can lead to inconsistencies and unfairness. It fails to demonstrate due diligence in verifying the academic rigor of the applicant's prior education. Prioritizing speed of admission over the thoroughness of credential verification is fundamentally flawed. While efficiency is desirable, it cannot supersede the university's obligation to maintain academic standards and adhere to its admission regulations. This approach risks admitting unqualified students and damaging the university's reputation, violating the core principles of academic governance. Professional reasoning. Professionals in university admissions must adopt a process-oriented mindset. This involves understanding the regulatory framework governing admissions, identifying potential risks and challenges, and developing systematic procedures to mitigate them. The decision-making process should prioritize adherence to established policies and ethical considerations, ensuring fairness and integrity. When faced with novel situations, such as evaluating international credentials, the professional should consult existing guidelines, seek expert advice if necessary, and implement a verification process that is both robust and transparent. The goal is to create a system that is defensible, equitable, and upholds the institution's academic mission. Question 8. Upon reviewing the initial batch of International Relations Program applications for the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations entrance exam, the admissions team notices a recurring pattern of slightly inconsistent dates on supporting academic transcripts and recommendation letters for a subset of applicants from a particular region. The team is under pressure to meet the initial screening deadline. Which of the following approaches best navigates this situation while strictly adhering to the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations entrance exams regulatory framework? Option A. Accept the documents as submitted, assuming the discrepancies are minor clerical errors, and prioritize processing applications with no apparent issues to meet the deadline. Option B. Immediately flag these applications for further investigation, initiating a process to verify the authenticity of the documents with the issuing institutions before proceeding with the screening, even if it risks a slight delay in the initial deadline. Option C. Proceed with the screening of these applications, making a note of the date discrepancies for potential follow-up if the applicant is shortlisted, to ensure the deadline is met. Option D. Reject these applications outright due to the date inconsistencies, citing a failure to meet the documentation requirements of the entrance exam. The correct answer is C. Proceed with the screening of these applications, making a note of the date discrepancies for potential follow-up if the applicant is shortlisted, to ensure the deadline is met. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between the university's commitment to academic integrity and the need to process applications efficiently. The admissions committee must balance thoroughness with timeliness, ensuring that all applicants are evaluated fairly and according to established procedures, while also adhering to the specific regulations and guidelines governing the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations entrance exam. The risk of overlooking critical information or making hasty decisions that could compromise the integrity of the admissions process necessitates a structured and compliant approach. The correct approach involves a systematic review of each application against the defined criteria, with a specific focus on verifying the authenticity and completeness of submitted documents. This aligns with the university's regulatory framework, which mandates a rigorous evaluation process to uphold academic standards and ensure that only qualified candidates are admitted. Adherence to these established procedures is not merely a procedural requirement, but an ethical imperative to maintain fairness and transparency in admissions. An incorrect approach that prioritizes speed over accuracy would fail to meet the university's regulatory obligations. Such an approach risks admitting unqualified candidates or unfairly rejecting deserving ones, thereby undermining the credibility of the institution. Another incorrect approach, which involves making assumptions about the validity of documents without proper verification, directly contravenes the principle of due diligence required by the exam's guidelines. This can lead to significant ethical breaches and potential reputational damage for the university. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the governing regulations and internal policies. This framework should then guide the development of a standardized checklist for application review, ensuring that all essential elements are examined. Regular training on these procedures and ethical considerations is crucial. Finally, a mechanism for escalating complex or ambiguous cases to a senior committee for review ensures that decisions are well-reasoned and compliant with the established framework. Question 9. Stakeholder feedback indicates a potential breach of academic integrity during a recent examination. The feedback is specific, but lacks definitive proof. What is the most appropriate initial step for the university administration to take to address this situation in accordance with Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations regulatory framework for academic conduct? Option A. Publicly announce that the university is reviewing its examination procedures to prevent future incidents without directly addressing the specific feedback. Option B. Disregard the feedback as it lacks definitive proof and could be based on unsubstantiated claims. Option C. Initiate a formal investigation process, gathering all available evidence and providing the student involved an opportunity to respond to the allegations. Option D. Immediately inform the student of the allegations and impose a penalty based on the severity of the suspected breach. Correct answer is C. Initiate a formal investigation process, gathering all available evidence and providing the student involved an opportunity to respond to the allegations. Explanation: the scenario presents a challenge in balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to address student concerns promptly and effectively. The university, as an educational institution, operates under a framework of regulations and ethical guidelines that prioritize fairness, transparency, and due process in handling academic misconduct. Specifically, Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations will be guided by its internal regulations concerning academic honesty, examination procedures, and student grievance mechanisms, which are designed to uphold the credibility of its degrees and the learning environment. The professional challenge lies in ensuring that any process for addressing stakeholder feedback, particularly concerning potential academic irregularities, is both thorough and adheres to these established protocols, avoiding hasty judgments or actions that could undermine student rights or the university's reputation. The correct approach involves a systematic and evidence-based review process. This entails gathering all relevant information, including the specific feedback provided, any supporting documentation, and the university's established policies on academic integrity and examination conduct. The process must ensure that any investigation is impartial, confidential, and provides the student in question with an opportunity to respond to allegations. This aligns with principles of natural justice and the university's regulatory obligations to maintain fair academic standards. The ethical imperative is to protect the integrity of the academic process while ensuring that students are treated equitably and their rights are respected. An incorrect approach would be to immediately implement punitive measures based solely on initial feedback without a proper investigation. This fails to uphold the principle of innocent until proven guilty and bypasses the university's established procedures for handling academic misconduct, potentially leading to wrongful accusations and damage to student reputations. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the feedback entirely without any form of review. This neglects the university's responsibility to investigate credible concerns and could allow academic misconduct to persist, thereby eroding academic standards and stakeholder trust. A third incorrect approach might involve a superficial review that does not adequately gather evidence or provide the student with a fair hearing, thus failing to meet the standards of due process required by academic regulations. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established university policies and procedures. This involves 1. Acknowledging and documenting all stakeholder feedback. 2. Consulting relevant university regulations and guidelines concerning academic integrity, examinations, and student grievances. 3. Initiating a formal, impartial investigation process that includes evidence gathering and an opportunity for the student to present their case. 4. Making a determination based on the evidence and in accordance with university policy. 5. Communicating the outcome and any subsequent actions clearly and transparently, while respecting confidentiality requirements. Question 10. Cost-benefit analysis shows that upgrading the university's IT infrastructure will yield significant improvements in operational efficiency and student learning experiences, while investing in advanced research facilities could enhance the university's international reputation and attract leading researchers. Given limited resources, which strategic investment should Anania Shirakatsi University prioritize to best fulfill its mission and ethical obligations? Option A. Defer both investments until additional funding can be secured to avoid making a suboptimal choice. Option B. Allocate the budget equally between both projects to ensure progress on both fronts, even if neither is fully funded. Option C. Prioritize the IT infrastructure upgrade due to its immediate and widespread impact on current operations and the quality of education. Option D. Prioritize the advanced research facilities to enhance international standing and attract top talent, assuming future benefits outweigh current operational needs. The correct answer is C. Prioritize the IT infrastructure upgrade due to its immediate and widespread impact on current operations and the quality of education. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between resource allocation for immediate operational needs and long-term strategic development, particularly within the context of an educational institution like Anania Shirakatsi University. The university must balance the immediate demand for updated IT infrastructure to support current academic and administrative functions with the potential future benefits of investing in advanced research facilities that could enhance its international standing and attract top talent. Careful judgment is required to ensure that decisions align with the university's mission, strategic goals, and ethical responsibilities towards its students. faculty, and stakeholders. The correct approach involves prioritizing the IT infrastructure upgrade. This is justified by the immediate and widespread impact on operational efficiency and the quality of education. Outdated IT systems can hinder research, disrupt teaching, and impede administrative processes, directly affecting the student and faculty experience. Investing in robust IT infrastructure is a foundational requirement for any modern educational institution aiming to maintain its competitive edge and fulfill its educational mandate. This aligns with the university's implicit commitment to providing a functional and effective learning environment, which is a core ethical responsibility. Furthermore, a cost-benefit analysis that highlights significant operational improvements and risk mitigation, e.g., data security, system reliability, strongly supports this decision as a prudent and necessary investment. An incorrect approach would be to defer the IT upgrade in favor of the research facilities. This is ethically problematic because it prioritizes potential future gains over the current, tangible needs of the university community. The failure lies in neglecting the immediate operational requirements that underpin all academic activities. Students and faculty are currently disadvantaged by inadequate IT, and this disadvantage will persist and potentially worsen. Another incorrect approach would be to split the budget equally between the two projects without a clear strategic rationale or a thorough assessment of which investment yields the greatest overall benefit to the university's mission and stakeholders. This compromise often results in neither project being adequately funded, leading to suboptimal outcomes for both. A further incorrect approach would be to solely focus on the prestige associated with advanced research facilities, overlooking the fundamental need for a functional IT backbone. This demonstrates a misaligned prioritization that could undermine the university's core educational mission. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a comprehensive needs assessment, a clear articulation of strategic priorities, and a rigorous cost-benefit analysis for each potential investment. This analysis should consider not only financial costs and benefits, but also the impact on stakeholders, operational efficiency, and the university's long-term mission and reputation. Transparency in the decision-making process and clear communication of the rationale to all stakeholders are also crucial for maintaining trust and ensuring buy-in. Question 11. Examination of the data shows that the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations has experienced a significant increase in inquiries from prospective international students following a recent marketing campaign. However, a preliminary review of the campaign materials suggests that some of the information regarding specific program prerequisites and scholarship availability may be outdated or presented in a manner that could be misinterpreted by applicants. The university's admissions committee is tasked with determining the most appropriate course of action to address this discrepancy while maintaining its recruitment goals. Which of the following approaches best addresses the situation in accordance with ethical and regulatory best practices for educational institutions? Option A. Continue with the current recruitment materials to capitalize on the momentum generated by the campaign and address any specific applicant concerns on a case-by-case basis during the application review process. Option B. Focus solely on highlighting the positive aspects of the university and its programs in future communications, and subtly downplay any information that might deter potential applicants, such as stringent admission requirements. Option C. Initiate an internal review of the marketing campaign's effectiveness and consider minor adjustments to the language used, but avoid any significant changes to the materials that might disrupt the current influx of applications. Option D. Immediately update all online and print recruitment materials to reflect the most current and accurate information regarding program prerequisites and scholarship availability, and issue a clarifying statement to all recent inquirers. The correct answer is D. Immediately update all online and print recruitment materials to reflect the most current and accurate information regarding program prerequisites and scholarship availability, and issue a clarifying statement to all recent inquirers. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between the university's need to attract international students and the ethical obligation to provide accurate and transparent information about its programs and admission requirements. Misrepresenting these aspects can lead to significant reputational damage, legal repercussions, and most importantly, harm to prospective students who make life-altering decisions based on incomplete or misleading information. The university's admissions team must navigate this delicate balance with integrity and adherence to established guidelines. The correct approach involves a thorough review and potential revision of the university's international student recruitment materials to ensure they accurately reflect current admission criteria, program structures, and any associated costs. This process should involve cross-referencing all claims with official university policies and regulatory requirements governing international education. Transparency is paramount. The ambiguities or potential areas of misunderstanding should be proactively addressed with clear, concise language. This aligns with the ethical principles of honesty and fairness, as well as any specific regulations governing educational institutions in the relevant jurisdiction that mandate truthful advertising and accurate representation of academic offerings. An incorrect approach would be to continue using recruitment materials that, while effective in attracting interest, contain outdated or misleading information about admission requirements. This constitutes a failure to uphold the principle of truthfulness and could violate regulations requiring accurate representation of educational programs. Another incorrect approach would be to implement a policy of selective disclosure, where only positive aspects are highlighted while potential challenges or stricter requirements are downplayed. This is ethically unsound and can lead to accusations of deception, potentially violating consumer protection laws or specific educational accreditation standards. Furthermore, an approach that prioritizes immediate enrollment numbers over the long-term academic success and well-being of students by admitting individuals who do not meet the genuine requirements would be a severe ethical and regulatory breach. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a systematic audit of all external communications. This includes identifying potential discrepancies, consulting with relevant university departments, e.g., academic affairs, legal counsel, and implementing a clear protocol for updating and approving all recruitment materials. A commitment to continuous improvement and a proactive stance on transparency are crucial for maintaining trust and ensuring compliance with all applicable regulations. Question 12. Assessment of the most appropriate process for evaluating the academic credentials of international applicants to the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations, considering the university's commitment to academic excellence and adherence to its admission regulations. Option A. Making admission decisions based on the applicant's country of origin, assuming a certain level of academic preparedness based on general perceptions of educational systems in those regions. Option B. Prioritizing applicants who express a strong desire to study at the university and have provided a compelling personal statement, assuming their academic background is generally sufficient. Option C. Allowing individual admissions officers to make final decisions based on their personal judgment and experience, with minimal oversight. To expedite the application processing, Option D. A systematic review of all submitted academic transcripts, certificates, and any other required documentation against the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations, published admission criteria for international students, with a designated committee responsible for verifying equivalency and eligibility. The correct answer is D. A systematic review of all submitted academic transcripts, certificates, and any other required documentation against the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations, published admission criteria for international students, with a designated committee responsible for verifying equivalency and eligibility. Explanation. The scenario presents a challenge in balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to process applications efficiently. The core professional challenge lies in ensuring that the admissions committee's decision-making process is fair, transparent, and adheres strictly to the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations established admission regulations and ethical guidelines. Misinterpreting or misapplying these regulations can lead to biased outcomes, reputational damage for the university, and potential legal challenges. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between legitimate requests for clarification and attempts to circumvent established procedures. The correct approach involves a systematic review of all submitted documents against the university's published admission criteria and the specific requirements for international applicants. This approach prioritizes adherence to the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations regulatory framework, ensuring that each applicant is evaluated on the same objective standards. It upholds the principle of equal opportunity and maintains the integrity of the admissions process. This aligns with the university's ethical obligation to conduct admissions in a fair and impartial manner, as stipulated by its internal regulations and any overarching national educational policies governing university admissions. An incorrect approach that relies solely on the applicant's stated intent without verifying supporting documentation fails to uphold the university's regulatory requirements for proof of qualifications. This could lead to admitting underqualified candidates, undermining academic standards. Another incorrect approach that involves making exceptions based on perceived urgency or personal circumstances, without explicit authorization within the university's regulations, violates principles of fairness and consistency. It opens the door to subjective decision-making and potential accusations of favoritism, which are ethically unacceptable and contrary to established university policy. A third incorrect approach that involves delegating the final decision-making authority to junior administrative staff without proper oversight or adherence to established protocols bypasses the established governance structure and risks inconsistent application of admission criteria, thereby failing to meet regulatory and ethical standards. Professionals in university admissions should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of all applicable regulations, policies, and ethical guidelines. This framework should include a systematic process for evaluating applications, a clear protocol for handling discrepancies or requests for exceptions, and a defined chain of command for decision-making and appeals. When faced with ambiguity, the professional should seek clarification from designated authorities within the university rather than making assumptions or deviating from established procedures. The ultimate goal is to ensure that all decisions are defensible, transparent, and aligned with the university's mission and regulatory obligations. Question 13. Which approach would be most effective for a prospective student aiming to optimize their application for the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations entrance exam, considering the need to present a strong and cohesive profile? Option A. A proactive and integrated strategy that involves in-depth research of the university's specific program offerings and values, followed by a systematic alignment of personal qualifications and experiences to demonstrate a clear fit. Option B. A broad strategy of applying to numerous universities simultaneously, with minimal customization for each institution, to maximize the chances of acceptance somewhere. Option C. A fragmented approach focusing on improving individual application components, such as essays and recommendation letters, independently of each other and the university's broader expectations. Option D. A reactive strategy of addressing application requirements only as deadlines approach, prioritizing speed over thoroughness and strategic presentation. The correct answer is A. A proactive and integrated strategy that involves in-depth research of the university's specific program offerings and values, followed by a systematic alignment of personal qualifications and experiences to demonstrate a clear fit. Explanation. This scenario presents a challenge for prospective students applying to the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations entrance exam by requiring them to critically evaluate different strategic approaches to optimizing their application process. The challenge lies in understanding that a purely reactive or fragmented approach, while seemingly intuitive, can lead to missed opportunities and a less compelling application narrative. A successful application requires foresight, strategic planning, and a deep understanding of what the university seeks in its candidates, aligning personal strengths with institutional goals. The correct approach involves a proactive and integrated strategy. This means thoroughly researching the university's mission, values, and specific program requirements, and then systematically aligning personal experiences, academic achievements, and extracurricular activities to demonstrate a strong fit. This approach is justified by the implicit regulatory framework of university admissions, which prioritizes candidates who exhibit genuine interest, preparedness, and a clear understanding of the academic and professional path they wish to pursue. It reflects a commitment to presenting a cohesive and well-supported application, which is a hallmark of responsible and strategic decision-making in academic pursuits. An incorrect approach would be to focus solely on improving individual components of the application in isolation, such as only revising essays, without considering how they connect to other parts of the application or the university's objectives. This fails to create a holistic picture and may result in a disjointed presentation. Another incorrect approach would be to prioritize quantity over quality, submitting numerous applications to various institutions without tailoring each one to the specific requirements and ethos of Anania Shirakatsi University. This demonstrates a lack of focused intent and an inefficient use of resources. Finally, a reactive approach, waiting until the last minute to address application components or address perceived weaknesses, often leads to rushed and suboptimal submissions, failing to showcase the applicant's full potential. Professionals should approach such situations by first defining clear objectives, gaining admission to Anania Shirakatsi University, then conducting thorough research to understand the evaluation criteria. They should then develop a strategic plan that integrates all application elements, ensuring consistency and alignment with institutional goals. Regular self-assessment and seeking feedback are crucial to refine the strategy and ensure the application effectively communicates the applicant's suitability. Question 14. Implementation of a revised admissions policy at Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations requires the admissions committee to consider a broader range of applicant profiles. During the review of applications for the International Relations program, a committee member suggests prioritizing candidates who have demonstrated exceptional leadership potential in extracurricular activities, even if their academic scores are slightly below the stated minimum threshold, arguing this aligns with the program's goal of cultivating future global leaders. Another member proposes giving preferential treatment to applicants from specific geopolitical regions that the university aims to strengthen ties with. A third member advocates for a strict adherence to the published academic and extracurricular criteria, ensuring all applicants are evaluated solely on these objective measures. Which approach best upholds the principles of fair and transparent admissions at Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations? Option A. Strictly adhering to the published academic and extracurricular criteria for all applicants. Option B. Giving preferential treatment to applicants from specific geopolitical regions that the university aims to strengthen ties with. Option C. Prioritizing candidates with exceptional leadership potential in extracurricular activities, even if their academic scores are slightly below the stated minimum threshold. Option D. Introducing a new criterion based on the perceived future political influence of applicants. The correct answer is A. Strictly adhering to the published academic and extracurricular criteria for all applicants. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge in navigating the ethical and regulatory landscape of international relations admissions, specifically concerning the fair and transparent evaluation of applicants to Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations. The challenge lies in balancing the university's need to select qualified candidates with the imperative to uphold principles of fairness, non-discrimination, and adherence to established admission policies. A key ethical consideration is the potential for bias, whether conscious or unconscious, to influence the selection process. Furthermore, the university must operate within the framework of its own published admission regulations and any relevant national or international guidelines governing educational institutions. The correct approach involves a systematic and objective evaluation of all applicants based on predefined criteria, ensuring that any additional information considered is directly relevant to the applicant's suitability for the program and is applied consistently across all candidates. This aligns with the university's commitment to meritocracy and equal opportunity. Specifically, adhering to the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations stated admission criteria, which are designed to assess academic potential, relevant experience, and suitability for international relations studies, is paramount. This approach ensures transparency and defensibility of the admissions decisions, minimizing the risk of arbitrary or discriminatory outcomes. An incorrect approach would be to introduce subjective or irrelevant factors into the evaluation process. For instance, prioritizing applicants based on personal connections or perceived future political influence, rather than their demonstrated qualifications, violates the principle of merit-based selection. This could lead to accusations of favoritism and undermine the university's reputation. Another incorrect approach would be to deviate from the published admission criteria without a clear, documented, and justifiable reason, or to apply criteria inconsistently. This failure to adhere to established procedures creates an unfair playing field and can be seen as a breach of regulatory compliance if the university's admissions process is subject to oversight. Such actions erode trust in the institution and can have legal ramifications if they lead to discrimination claims. Professionals in admission should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the university's admission policies and ethical guidelines. This framework should emphasize objective assessment, consistent application of criteria, and a commitment to fairness. When faced with complex cases or potential ambiguities, professionals should consult with colleagues or superiors, document their reasoning, and ensure that all decisions can be justified against the established standards. The process should be designed to mitigate bias and promote inclusivity, ensuring that all applicants are given a fair opportunity. Question 15. The monitoring system demonstrates a potential discrepancy between the advertised capacity for the International Relations program and the actual available slots, possibly due to a recent update in faculty allocation. The university is preparing its annual admissions brochure for prospective students. Which of the following actions best upholds the principles of transparency and regulatory compliance for Anania Shirakatsi University? Option A. Immediately halt the publication of the admissions brochure and initiate a comprehensive audit of the monitoring system and related data to ensure absolute accuracy before any release. Option B. Instruct the admissions department to manually adjust the advertised capacity in the brochure to a conservative estimate, overriding the monitoring system's data. Option C. Proceed with publishing the brochure using the data currently reflected in the monitoring system, assuming it will be updated before enrollment begins. Option D. Publish the brochure with the current data, but include a general disclaimer about potential minor variations in program capacity. The correct answer is C. Proceed with publishing the brochure using the data currently reflected in the monitoring system, assuming it will be updated before enrollment begins. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need for efficient resource allocation with the ethical imperative to provide accurate and timely information to all stakeholders, particularly prospective students and their families. The university's reputation and its commitment to transparency are at stake. Misrepresenting program availability or admission standards, even unintentionally due to process optimization, can lead to significant reputational damage and potential regulatory scrutiny if it violates principles of fair advertising and consumer protection, as outlined by Armenian higher education regulations. The correct approach involves a thorough review and recalibration of the monitoring system to ensure it accurately reflects current program offerings and admission requirements before any external communication is disseminated. This approach prioritizes accuracy and transparency, aligning with the ethical duty to provide truthful information and the regulatory expectation that educational institutions operate with integrity. By verifying the data and correcting any discrepancies before public release, the university upholds its commitment to prospective students and avoids potential misrepresentations. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with communication based on potentially outdated or inaccurate data, assuming the monitoring system's output is inherently correct. This fails to acknowledge the possibility of system errors or data lag, leading to the dissemination of misleading information. Such an action could violate principles of honest advertising and fair practice, potentially contravening regulations that govern the information provided by educational institutions to the public. Another incorrect approach would be to delay communication indefinitely until the monitoring system is perfect, even if minor discrepancies exist. While accuracy is paramount, an overly cautious approach that prevents timely information dissemination can also be detrimental, hindering prospective students' decision-making processes and potentially impacting the university's enrollment targets. This approach fails to strike a balance between accuracy and operational efficiency. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a risk assessment of the potential consequences of disseminating inaccurate information versus delaying communication. It requires a proactive approach to data verification, utilizing established internal audit procedures for monitoring systems. When discrepancies are identified, the immediate priority should be to investigate the root cause and implement corrective actions before any external communication occurs. If minor, non-material inaccuracies are identified that do not fundamentally alter program offerings or admission criteria, a decision might be made to proceed with a disclaimer, but this should be a rare exception and only after careful consideration of all implications. Question 16. During the evaluation of entrance examination results for the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations, a committee member suggests expediting the process by prioritizing candidates who have strong informal recommendations from faculty, even if their examination scores are not definitively at the top. Another member proposes focusing on filling the available seats quickly to meet institutional targets, suggesting a less stringent review of borderline cases. A third member advocates for a more holistic review, considering extracurricular achievements and personal essays more heavily than the standardized entrance exam scores, which approach best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical guidelines for university entrance examinations in Armenia. Option A. A systematic and documented review of all submitted examination materials, cross-referencing them against established admission criteria and the university's internal regulations for the entrance exam. Option B. A holistic review that heavily weighs extracurricular achievements and personal essays over standardized entrance exam scores. Option C. Focusing on filling the available seats quickly to meet institutional targets with a less stringent review of borderline cases. Option D. Prioritizing candidates based on informal recommendations from faculty, irrespective of their examination performance. The correct answer is A. A systematic and documented review of all submitted examination materials, cross-referencing them against established admission criteria and the university's internal regulations for the entrance exam. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge in the context of university admissions, specifically concerning the integrity of the entrance examination process at Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations. The challenge lies in balancing the need for efficient and fair evaluation with the imperative to uphold the university's academic standards and regulatory compliance. The pressure to admit a sufficient number of qualified candidates, coupled with the potential for subjective interpretation of assessment criteria, requires careful judgment to ensure fairness and prevent any perception of bias or procedural impropriety. Adherence to the specific regulatory framework governing university entrance exams in Armenia is paramount. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic and documented review of all submitted examination materials, cross-referencing them against established admission criteria and the university's internal regulations for the entrance exam. This process ensures that decisions are based on objective evidence and are consistent with the established procedures. Specifically, it aligns with the principles of transparency and accountability inherent in educational governance, as likely stipulated by the Ministry of Education, Science, Culture, and Sports of Armenia, which oversees higher education institutions. This approach minimizes the risk of arbitrary decisions and upholds the credibility of the admission process. Incorrect approach is analysis. Prioritizing candidates based on informal recommendations or perceived potential without a thorough review of their examination performance and adherence to admission criteria is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach bypasses the established objective assessment framework, potentially leading to the admission of less qualified individuals and the rejection of more deserving ones. It violates principles of fairness and equal opportunity and could contravene regulations mandating merit-based admissions, focusing solely on the number of applicants to fill quotas without a rigorous evaluation of each candidate's academic merit as demonstrated in the entrance exam is another regulatory and ethical lapse. This approach prioritizes expediency over quality and integrity, undermining the university's academic mission and potentially violating guidelines that emphasize selecting candidates based on their preparedness for higher education. Relying on the subjective impressions of individual examiners without a standardized, documented evaluation process introduces an unacceptable level of bias. This can lead to inconsistent and unfair assessments, failing to meet the requirements for objective and verifiable admissions procedures, as expected by educational authorities. Professional reasoning. Professionals in university admissions must adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to the established regulatory framework and ethical principles. This involves 1. Understanding and strictly applying the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations entrance examination regulations and any overarching national guidelines from the Ministry of Education. 2. Ensuring all evaluation processes are transparent, documented, and based on objective criteria. 3. Maintaining a commitment to fairness and equal opportunity for all applicants. 4. Implementing a system of checks and balances to prevent bias and ensure consistency in decision-making. 5. Regularly reviewing and updating procedures to align with best practices and regulatory changes. Question 17. The monitoring system demonstrates a statistically significant deviation in response patterns for a subset of applicants during the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations entrance exam, suggesting potential irregularities. Which of the following actions best aligns with the principles of fair and rigorous examination processes under the university's regulatory framework? Option A. Mandate a re-examination for all applicants whose response patterns were flagged, regardless of the specific nature of the deviation. Option B. Initiate a thorough, impartial investigation into the flagged deviations, gathering all relevant data and comparing it against established exam protocols and applicant profiles to determine the nature and validity of the anomalies before any action is taken. Option C. Immediately disqualify all applicants whose response patterns were flagged by the monitoring system to maintain the integrity of the exam. Option D. Disregard the monitoring system's findings, assuming they are likely false positives, and proceed with the admission process as planned. The correct answer is B. Initiate a thorough, impartial investigation into the flagged deviations, gathering all relevant data and comparing it against established exam protocols and applicant profiles to determine the nature and validity of the anomalies before any action is taken. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to ensure fair and transparent admission processes, all within the specific regulatory framework of the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations entrance exam. The monitoring system's findings necessitate a careful, evidence-based response that upholds the university's reputation and adheres to its established admission guidelines. The challenge lies in identifying potential irregularities without prematurely or unfairly penalizing applicants, and in ensuring that any corrective actions are proportionate and justifiable under the exam's regulations. The correct approach involves a thorough, impartial investigation of the flagged anomalies. This means gathering all relevant data, reviewing the specific nature of the detected patterns, and comparing them against the established criteria and procedures for the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations entrance exam. The justification for this approach lies in its adherence to principles of due process and fairness, which are implicitly or explicitly embedded in any reputable examination framework. By investigating thoroughly, the university ensures that decisions are based on concrete evidence and not on mere suspicion, thereby protecting the integrity of the admission process and the rights of all applicants. This aligns with the overarching goal of any university entrance exam, to select qualified candidates through a fair and objective evaluation. An incorrect approach would be to immediately disqualify candidates based solely on the monitoring system's alerts without further verification. This fails to acknowledge the possibility of system errors, false positives, or legitimate explanations for the observed patterns. Such an action would violate the principle of natural justice and could lead to wrongful disqualification, damaging the university's credibility and potentially leading to appeals or legal challenges. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the monitoring system's findings altogether. This would represent a dereliction of duty and a failure to uphold the university's responsibility to ensure the integrity of its entrance examinations. By disregarding potential irregularities, the university risks allowing unfair advantages or even fraudulent activities to go unchecked, undermining the meritocratic basis of admissions and potentially admitting unqualified candidates. A further incorrect approach would be to implement a blanket policy of re-examination for all applicants flagged by the system, regardless of the severity or nature of the anomaly. While seemingly proactive, this approach lacks proportionality and could impose undue burden and stress on applicants who may have exhibited minor or inconsequential deviations. It also fails to address the root cause of the anomaly and may not be the most efficient or effective use of resources. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a structured, multi-stage approach. 1. Acknowledge and document the alert from the monitoring system. 2. Conduct an initial assessment to understand the nature and potential severity of the flagged anomaly. 3. If the anomaly suggests a potential breach of exam regulations or unfair advantage, initiate a formal investigation. 4. Gather all relevant evidence, including raw data, applicant responses, and any contextual information. 5. Consult the specific regulations and guidelines of the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations entrance exam to determine the appropriate course of action. 6. Make a decision based on the evidence and in strict accordance with the university's established procedures, ensuring fairness and transparency. 7. Communicate the decision and the rationale clearly to the affected parties, adhering to confidentiality requirements. Question 18. Performance analysis shows that the current Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations entrance examination process is experiencing delays in candidate shortlisting and a high volume of administrative queries regarding application status. Which of the following approaches to process optimization is most aligned with the principles of fair and efficient university admissions under Armenian regulatory frameworks? Option A. Implement a phased review of each examination stage to identify specific inefficiencies, gather feedback from admissions staff and applicants, and propose targeted technological or procedural adjustments to streamline workflows while maintaining assessment integrity. Option B. Prioritize the implementation of a new, fully automated application tracking system without comprehensive staff training or pilot testing, focusing solely on reducing manual data entry. Option C. Immediately reduce the number of examination stages by merging or eliminating perceived redundant steps to accelerate the overall processing timeline. Option D. Shift the primary focus of optimization towards faster communication of preliminary results, even if it means sacrificing detailed feedback on individual applicant performance. The correct answer is A. Implement a phased review of each examination stage to identify specific inefficiencies, gather feedback from admissions staff and applicants, and propose targeted technological or procedural adjustments to streamline workflows while maintaining assessment integrity. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the university's entrance examination process, while aiming for fairness and efficiency, has revealed a potential bottleneck impacting applicant experience and administrative workload. The challenge lies in identifying and implementing a process optimization strategy that aligns with the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations commitment to academic integrity and equitable access, while also respecting the specific regulatory framework governing university admissions in Armenia. Hasty or ill-conceived optimization could inadvertently create new barriers, compromise the quality of assessment, or violate established procedural guidelines. Careful judgment is required to balance efficiency gains with the fundamental principles of fair and transparent admissions. The correct approach involves a systematic review of the existing entrance examination process, identifying specific pain points through data analysis and stakeholder feedback, and then proposing targeted, evidence-based improvements. This approach prioritizes understanding the root causes of inefficiencies before implementing solutions. It aligns with the principles of good governance and administrative best practices, which are implicitly expected within the framework of any educational institution operating under national regulations. Specifically, it respects the need for a robust and fair admissions process, as mandated by Armenian higher education laws, which emphasize equal opportunity and merit-based selection. This method ensures that any changes are well justified, measurable, and unlikely to negatively impact the integrity or fairness of the examination. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on reducing the number of examination stages without a thorough analysis of their purpose and impact would be professionally unacceptable. This fails to acknowledge that each stage, even if perceived as time-consuming, might serve a crucial function in assessing different facets of a candidate's suitability for international relations studies. Such an approach risks undermining the comprehensive evaluation of applicants and could lead to the selection of less qualified individuals, thereby violating the spirit of meritocratic admissions enshrined in educational regulations. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes speed of processing over the quality of applicant feedback would also be a significant ethical and regulatory failure. While efficiency is desirable, the entrance examination process is a critical interaction point for prospective students. Neglecting to provide clear, constructive, and timely feedback, even in an optimized process, can lead to applicant dissatisfaction and reputational damage for the university. This disregards the ethical obligation to treat applicants with respect and transparency, which is a cornerstone of fair admissions practices. A third incorrect approach that involves implementing technological solutions without adequate training for administrative staff or robust testing would be a procedural and operational failure. This could lead to errors, system malfunctions, and a breakdown in the examination process, potentially disenfranchising applicants. It demonstrates a lack of due diligence and foresight, failing to consider the practical implications of technological adoption within the existing regulatory and operational context of the university. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, clearly define the problem and its impact using performance data. Second, engage relevant stakeholders, admissions officers, faculty, IT support, to gather diverse perspectives. Third, research and evaluate potential solutions, considering their feasibility, cost, and alignment with regulatory requirements and ethical principles. Fourth, pilot test chosen solutions on a small scale to identify and rectify any unforeseen issues. Finally, implement the optimized process with clear communication and ongoing monitoring to ensure sustained effectiveness and compliance. Question 19. The monitoring system demonstrates that a significant number of applications to the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations are experiencing delays in the initial processing stage. To optimize this process, the admissions department proposes to analyze the raw application data, which includes applicant names, contact details, and academic records, to identify patterns and bottlenecks. Which approach best balances the need for process optimization with the university's commitment to data protection and privacy? Option A. Obtain explicit, individual consent from each applicant for the use of their raw data in process optimization. Option B. Discard the raw applicant data and rely solely on qualitative feedback to identify process inefficiencies. Option C. Anonymize or pseudonymize the applicant data before using it for process optimization analysis. Option D. Directly analyze the raw applicant data, including all personal identifiers, to gain the most comprehensive insights. The correct answer is C. Anonymize or pseudonymize the applicant data before using it for process optimization analysis. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need for efficient data processing and system improvement with the imperative to protect sensitive student information, as mandated by the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations, internal regulations, and relevant data protection guidelines. The university's commitment to academic integrity and student privacy necessitates a rigorous approach to data handling. The correct approach involves anonymizing or pseudonymizing the data before it is used for process optimization. This method aligns with the university's data protection policies, which emphasize minimizing the risk of re-identification of individuals. By removing or obscuring direct identifiers, the university can analyze system performance and identify bottlenecks without compromising the privacy of its applicants. This adheres to the ethical principle of data minimization and the regulatory requirement to safeguard personal data. An incorrect approach would be to directly use the raw applicant data for analysis. This directly violates the university's data protection protocols and potentially the principles of data privacy, as it exposes sensitive personal information to a broader analytical process. The risk of accidental disclosure or misuse of this data is significantly heightened, leading to a breach of trust and potential legal repercussions. Another incorrect approach would be to discard the data entirely without attempting any form of analysis. While this prioritizes data security, it represents a failure in process optimization. The university has an obligation to improve its admissions processes, and valuable insights could be gained from analyzing the data. This approach neglects the university's operational efficiency goals and the potential for enhancing the applicant experience. A further incorrect approach would be to seek explicit consent from every applicant for the use of their data in process optimization. While consent is a cornerstone of data protection, the administrative burden and potential for low response rates would render this approach impractical for large-scale process analysis. Furthermore, the university's internal regulations likely provide for the use of anonymized data for operational improvements without requiring individual consent for each instance, provided the anonymization is robust. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve 1. Identifying the core objectives, process optimization and data protection. 2. Reviewing relevant university regulations and data privacy guidelines. 3. Evaluating different data handling techniques for their effectiveness in achieving both objectives. 4. Selecting the approach that offers the best balance between analytical utility and privacy preservation, prioritizing regulatory compliance and ethical considerations. 5. Implementing robust anonymization or pseudonymization techniques if that is the chosen path. Question 20. The monitoring system demonstrates a pattern of discrepancies in the processing of international applicant documents, specifically noting delays in verification for candidates from certain regions and instances where required supplementary materials were not flagged as missing. This suggests a potential deviation from the standard admission protocols established by the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations. Which of the following actions best represents a procedurally sound and ethically responsible response to these findings? Option A. Immediately initiate a comprehensive review of the admission process for international applicants, cross-referencing the monitoring system's alerts with the university's official admission regulations and guidelines to identify specific procedural gaps or potential biases. Option B. Focus solely on addressing the delays in document verification for the affected regions, while disregarding the alerts regarding missing supplementary materials to avoid further complicating the process. Option C. Manually override the system's alerts for international applicants who are close to meeting the admission criteria to ensure that the university meets its enrollment quotas. Option D. Instruct the admissions team to expedite the processing of all international applications to meet enrollment targets, assuming the discrepancies are minor administrative oversights. The correct answer is A. Immediately initiate a comprehensive review of the admission process for international applicants, cross-referencing the monitoring system's alerts with the university's official admission regulations and guidelines to identify specific procedural gaps or potential biases. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's need for efficient student admissions with the ethical imperative to ensure fairness and adherence to established admission procedures. The pressure to meet enrollment targets can create a temptation to bypass or expedite certain steps, which could compromise the integrity of the process. Careful judgment is required to uphold the university's standards and regulatory compliance. The correct approach involves a systematic review of the monitoring system's findings to identify any deviations from the Anania Shirakatsi University of International Relations established admission regulations and guidelines. This approach is professionally sound because it prioritizes adherence to the university's internal policies and any overarching national educational regulations governing admissions. By initiating a formal review process, university demonstrates a commitment to transparency, fairness, and accountability, ensuring that all applicants are evaluated according to the same criteria and that any identified issues are addressed appropriately without prejudice. This aligns with the ethical principles of due process and equal opportunity in academic admissions. An incorrect approach would be to immediately dismiss the monitoring system's alerts as minor technical glitches without further investigation. This fails to acknowledge the potential for systemic issues or procedural irregularities that could impact the fairness of the admissions process. Ethically, it neglects the responsibility to ensure that admissions are conducted impartially. Another incorrect approach would be to selectively address only those alerts that appear to directly impact the university's immediate enrollment targets, while ignoring others. This demonstrates a lack of commitment to a comprehensive and fair admissions process, potentially leading to discriminatory practices or overlooking critical procedural flaws. It prioritizes expediency over integrity, which is ethically unacceptable. A further incorrect approach would be to instruct the admissions team to manually override or disregard certain alerts to expedite the process. This directly undermines the purpose of the monitoring system and bypasses established procedures, creating a risk of unfair admissions decisions and potential violations of university policy. It signals a disregard for established protocols and the principles of a transparent admissions process. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Acknowledge and document all alerts from the monitoring system. 2. Initiate a thorough review of the alerts, in conjunction with the university's admission regulations and guidelines. 3. Categorize alerts based on their potential impact on fairness, compliance, and operational efficiency. 4. Develop and implement a plan to investigate and address confirmed deviations involving relevant stakeholders. 5. Ensure that any corrective actions are documented and that the monitoring system is updated to prevent recurrence. 6. Communicate findings and actions taken to relevant university authorities.